is Talk Radio.
And welcome back. It is Frankie Boyer. And so we all watch. How is it possible that a brilliant company like Uber, come on, this is such a no-brainer, this company. It really is a no-brainer. It just feels like it can't get out of its own way. Joining us today is Tracey Jones, NBA, author of A Message to Millennials, What Your Parents Didn't Tell You and Your Employer Needs You to Know. And she is with us today. So, as an MBA, as someone who's working with young professionals, what's up with this CEO, Travis, from Uber?
Having me on here today. It's really interesting. First of all, for the listeners, any company, and we've seen it in the past, we've seen it across all different organizations, not just businesses, and we'll see it in the future, but any company runs the risk without insufficient leadership, or when the culture turns not just bad but actually dysfunctional, for running the root cause of what we're seeing here. And so anytime you have leadership in the board and in your mid-level managers and at the CEO level that are not clear on the values, and that has to take precedence over the bottom line, you run the risk of this happening in organizations.
Well, what makes this so disturbing is the same exact day that Travis said he was going to take time off. Yes, he's lost his mother recently, and he seems to be a young man that's very troubled and out of control. But at the board meeting, someone made a very sexist comment.
Yes.
The same day.
And you have to wonder, especially at a time when everybody's so sensitive, and we're wondering, hey, what is going to happen with this company? People rely on this for their livelihood. You really have to make sure you're above reproach, and that anything that comes out of your mouth can stand the sniff test and is not going to be misinterpreted or stupid, and you really got to watch what you say. And that really is where a leader has to have the real discernment to be aware of, at this time, I'm going to really parcel what I say out and make sure everything I do is making the situation better and not contributing to more controversy surrounding the organization.
Right. Exactly. So, will Uber be able to survive in your opinion, Tracey?
Well, I appreciate that, Frankie. There's that too big to fail mentality, and actually I think anytime a leader uses those words, those four words, they shouldn't be in a leadership position, because any organization has to realize that unless you are rooted in humility and teachability and basically reality, you run the risk. The question is, how deep is the dysfunction? And is it rotten to the core, or is it going to be able, can you take a rotten apple and make it ripe again? And it's, when I look at leadership situations, you kind of evaluate them and say, okay, are you woefully ignorant or are you willfully ignorant? And I talk about that in A Message to Millennials. Is it something sinister, or is it something that can be fixed? And as they peel back the layers and really drill down into the myriad of people that were involved in this, they're going to have to see how deep it goes and if it can be fixed.
As someone who is very giving, I know that you've given over $1 million to colleges, community centers throughout Pennsylvania, libraries, which are so needed. You lead prison book group discussions. You're just doing so much in the community. My question to you: is there a problem with millennials leading millennials? And I don't mean that in a pejorative way. Please understand, I'm just asking the question.
Well, Frankie, I wrote that book not to be looked down on millennials, but because so many of them were asking me, Tracey, how do I become a good leader? So they are hungry for this. But if you put anybody, especially a millennial, in a position where they have direct reports, and you have not mentored and schooled them, not just in the brightest mind, but what I like to say, the brightest hearts. And what I mean is the character, the empathy, the conscientiousness. What do you do if you raise something up the chain and you get shut down? If you don't school them in that, then they're going to be really ill-prepared to deal with all the ethical and human resources related situations that are going to hit them, especially in our global, transparent, and flattened hierarchy companies that you see in today's corporate America. So I think it's really you got to root them and teach them, groom them in the art and science of leadership first, which is what the book is all about, teaching them proper followership. Otherwise, you run the real risk of this always happening.
Right. I think you're probably right. There's, there's that when you people that have never had money and have no idea how to manage money win the lottery, they're broke.
Yes, exactly, because
I mean,
money
but that
trumps values.
And
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so. It's interesting. Where do we spark the change? Where does it come from?
Well, there's a great book called A Contrarian's Guide to Leadership, and Steve Sample, he was one of the prior presidents of USC. He has a point that we as leaders need to be aware of our tendency that A's hire A minuses hire C's, and C's hire F. So we need to be hyper vigilant that everybody we bring on board is not only at our level but possibly even superior, that they get our values, that they're going to be our accountability partners and keep us in check. Because when that money and that explosive growth happens, it's like I'm in publishing, and I've heard authors say, when you all of a sudden become a best-selling author and that notoriety kicks in, weird stuff starts happening. And Noel Coward has one of my favorite quotes. He says, the higher the building, the lower the morals. So we just have to be really aware. We all want growth, but growth has a dark side of leadership, and unless you're really watching out for that, and the book really talks, A Message to Millennials, about character and experience and all those great things that are your true core values. Unless you watch out for that and aware of that tendency, you're going to think all growth is good growth. No, not all growth is good growth. If it's not controlled and you don't have the right gatekeepers and the people that are going to be honest with you and have the tough conversations.
I so agree with you.
Gosh. Yeah, it's
so
over.
agree with you. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Or you get
I know
rid
of
the poor performers.
Yeah,
you know?
That's right.
Yeah,
I know of a company that grew so fast they went under anyway. I mean, making millions of dollars and were bankrupt in no time.
Absolutely. So you have to really, it is a gut check. And, for the CEOs and the board, I would say it's not so much what you're doing, it's who you're bringing into the organization and who you're surrounding yourself with. That's what guarantees success, or will make you just one of the many companies that grew really big and then imploded, tripped on their own culture. And we've heard enough of those stories.
We certainly have. Tracey, what's the best website? How can people find out more about you and the work you're doing?
Oh, well, thank you. I would love to continue the conversation with the listeners or yourself. Best website is www.tremendousleadership.com, and they can pick up A Message to Millennials or The Contrarian's Guide to Leadership there, tremendousleadership.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. And we will be back in just a moment. Frankie Boyer, stay tuned. Biz Talk Radio.